Hey guys, welcome back to the Readers. I hope you are having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first one is a pro-revenge story. Around 2018, my wife and I moved into an 1,100 square feet condominium with 3 bedrooms and 2 baths. We were lucky to get this condo as second owners, paying only $314,000, just $6,000 more than the original price. Our unit was on the 3rd floor, and every room had wall-to-wall carpeting except for a small 4x4 square of vinyl flooring inside the front door leading to the outside breezeway. Yes, even the bathrooms, kitchen, and dining room were carpeted, which seemed strange but was common for buildings of that era. The front door opened to a spacious area with vaulted ceilings. The living room to the left, dining room, and kitchen to the right. The kitchen was partially separated from the living room by a wall with a cutout above the sink, and a long hallway led straight from the living room to the bedrooms. Most of our neighbors were friendly. The couple below us, Tom and Sarah, were university students who we got along with well. After they graduated, Sarah's brother Mike moved in with his college friends. Mike was decent enough, though we had one incident during his birthday party where the celebrations kept us up until 4:30 a.m. "Hey, sorry about last night," Mike said when we ran into him in the parking lot a few days later. "The party got a bit out of hand." "No worries," I replied with a grin, though you might have noticed our impromptu 8 a.m. concert the next morning. We all laughed about it, and there were no issues after that. Between 2020 and 2021, we replaced the carpeting in the kitchen and dining room with ceramic tile, extending it to the front door area. This was mainly because our daughter Emma had developed a talent for launching food from her high chair onto the carpet. In 2022, Mike and his roommates moved out, and the condo was sold to Rachel and David Thompson, a newlywed couple in their early 30s. Looking back, I'm not sure why anyone would expect perfect quiet while living between the 1st and 3rd floors of a condo building. One evening around 6 p.m., I was setting up my new powered subwoofer for the home theater system. I put on The Tomorrow War to test it out, enjoying the enhanced sound of the action sequences. After a couple of explosions, our doorbell rang twice in quick succession. I opened the door to find Rachel standing there, her face already showing signs of irritation. "Hi there," I said. "Do you have any idea how loud your movie is?" she demanded. "David and I are trying to have a peaceful dinner, and all we can hear is bombing and shooting." "Oh, sorry about that. I'll turn it down," I replied, attempting to be diplomatic. She left without another word. I reduced the subwoofer level and main volume slightly, but within minutes there was more aggressive knocking at the door. "We can still hear everything!" Rachel exclaimed before I could even speak. "It's completely disrupting our evening." "Really?" I asked, starting to lose patience. "What exactly can you hear? What's happening in the movie right now?" "I don't know, some science fiction movie or something," she huffed. "Actually, I'm watching The Tomorrow War, and the last scene had Chris Pratt saying..." I quoted the exact lines. "That's not the point," she interrupted, her face reddening. "It's too loud." "Well, according to noise ordinances, I don't have to lower the volume until 10 p.m., I explained calmly. "Fine," she snapped. "I guess we'll just have to go out to eat then." "Have a wonderful evening," I called after her retreating form before turning the volume back up. At the next Homeowners Association meeting, Rachel stood up and launched into a lengthy tirade. "The noise is unbearable," she declared. "Their child," pointing at us, "runs around constantly on their supposedly carpeted floors. Their baby cries at all hours. We can hear every footstep in their hallway, every movie, every TV show. And don't get me started on the Martinez family on the 1st floor with their Saturday morning music and loud conversations." This pattern continued for 6 months straight. Each time, the Homeowners Association Board President, Mr. Chen, would calmly respond, "As we've explained before, Mrs. Thompson, if the noise occurs between 8 a.m. and 10 p.m., there's nothing we can do. Outside those hours, you're welcome to contact law enforcement." After each meeting, the Homeowners Association would mail out their standard noise reminder letters. Rachel made sure to tape copies to our door twice. We later discovered they attended our local church and were supposed to be our monthly visiting family ministers, a duty they conveniently never fulfilled. The situation reached its peak when Rachel called the police on us twice after 11 p.m. Officer Martinez, no relation to our 1st floor neighbors, was apologetic both times. "Ma'am," he said to Rachel during the second visit, "I've been standing outside their door for 5 minutes and can barely hear their TV, even with my ear pressed against it." By month 7 of this harassment, my wife and I decided to renovate our flooring. We knew it would antagonize Rachel, but at this point we were beyond caring. We planned to extend the entry tile down the hallway to the master bedroom door, tile both bathrooms, and install light coffee-colored bamboo hardwood flooring in the living room. The demolition began on a Saturday around noon. As I was removing the last carpet tacks, there came the expected aggressive knocking. Rachel's voice carried through the door. "Could you please keep it down? I'm hosting a cooking demonstration party." "Of course," I replied sweetly, then proceeded to spend the next hour methodically hammer-testing every square foot of subfloor while cranking up some Metallica. The Martinez family's weekly mariachi cleaning music from downstairs provided an interesting musical mashup. The installation of the bamboo flooring was particularly satisfying. The floor nailer required both compressed air and a heavy mallet. Bang, bang, bang! For 3 straight days. "How's the demonstration going?" I called down cheerfully when Rachel appeared in her doorway, looking ready to explode. The new floors looked spectacular, especially when my daughter's tap shoes or my wife's collection of stilettos made contact with them. Each step created a wonderful resonating echo. We listed the condo shortly after and sold it within a month for $460,000. During closing, our realtor Jessica mentioned, "The buyers were absolutely in love with those floors." We'd timed the market perfectly, selling just before the 2023 real estate slowdown. About 9 months later, our old neighbor Mark called to tell us the Thompsons had sold their unit for $452,000, an $8,000 loss, and included a formal complaint to the Homeowners Association about how the excessive noise from the upstairs hardwood floors made the unit uninhabitable. The next one is an entitled People's Story. This all started in January 2023 when I moved into what I thought would be my dream home in a quiet suburban neighborhood in Colorado. I'm a 34-year-old software developer, and after years of saving, I finally bought my first house, a beautiful 3-bedroom ranch-style home with a 2-car garage. The price was right at $475,000, and everything seemed perfect. Until I met the Homeowners Association board. The first few weeks were uneventful. I received my welcome packet from the Homeowners Association, read through all the bylaws, and made sure I understood the rules. Nothing seemed unreasonable. Standard stuff about lawn maintenance, exterior paint colors, and trash bin placement. The monthly fees were $150, which was pretty standard for the area. The trouble began in March when I received my first violation notice. According to the Homeowners Association, my garbage bins were visible from the street on non-collection days. The thing is, my bins were always in my garage except on pickup days. I took photos to document this and sent a polite email to the Homeowners Association board explaining the error. Instead of acknowledging their mistake, I received a response from Karen Matthews, the Homeowners Association president, stating that I now owed a $100 fine for the violation plus an additional $50 administrative fee for having to respond to my email. I couldn't believe what I was reading. This has to be a mistake, I thought, so I called the Homeowners Association office. "I'm sorry, but the fines are valid," said Karen in that condescending tone that made my blood boil. "We have photographic evidence of your violations." "I'd like to see this evidence," I replied. "That information is confidential," she said. "Pay the fines within 72 hours, or they'll double." I refused to pay for violations I hadn't committed. Over the next few weeks, I received more bizarre violation notices. My grass was 0.25 inches too tall. They claimed they measured it. My garden hose was improperly coiled. There was no rule about this in the bylaws. And my garage door was the wrong shade of white. It was the original color from when I bought the house. By May, they claimed I owed $2,750 in fines and fees. I consulted with my neighbor Tom, who'd lived here for 15 years. "They're targeting you," he said, shaking his head. "They did the same thing to the last owner of your house. That's why he sold it so quickly. Karen wants her daughter to buy your place. It's the only ranch-style home in the neighborhood with a first-floor master bedroom, and her daughter has mobility issues." That explained a lot, but I wasn't about to be bullied out of my home. I hired a lawyer, Sarah Thompson, who specialized in homeowners association disputes. She reviewed all my documentation and confirmed what I suspected. These fines were completely bogus. Then came the morning of June 15th, 2023. I walked out to my driveway at 7:30 a.m. to go to work and found 3 large construction barriers blocking my driveway. A note was attached. "Driveway access suspended due to unpaid fines. Contact Homeowners Association office for resolution." I immediately called the police non-emergency line and my lawyer. While waiting, I took photos and videos of everything, including timestamps. Officer Rodriguez arrived first. "I've seen this before," he said after I explained the situation. "Unfortunately, it's a civil matter, but I can document this for your records." He took my statement and wrote up a report, noting that blocking someone's driveway could be considered harassment and illegal detainment. Just as he was finishing, Karen came strutting down the street with 2 other board members. "Is there a problem here?" she asked, feigning innocence. "Yes. I replied calmly, recording on my phone. "You've illegally blocked my driveway." "Nothing illegal about it," she smirked. "It's in the bylaws. Section 8, paragraph 3. The association reserves the right to restrict access to common areas for unpaid dues or fines." "My driveway isn't a common area," I countered. "It's my private property." "Actually," she said, pulling out a document, "all driveways in this community are considered easements under Homeowners Association control." Officer Rodriguez examined the document and handed it back. "Ma'am, this document is from 1985 and was superseded by the 2010 county ordinance that explicitly classifies residential driveways as private property." Karen's face turned red. "Well, he still needs to pay his fines." My lawyer arrived at this moment, and I've never been happier to see someone pull up in a Tesla. "Mrs. Matthews," Sarah said, stepping out of her car. "I'm Sarah Thompson, representing Mr. Anderson. You have exactly 30 minutes to remove these barriers, or we'll file for an emergency injunction and sue for damages including lost wages and emotional distress." "You can't sue the Homeowners Association," Karen scoffed. "It's in the bylaws that homeowners waive their right to litigation." Sarah smiled. "That clause was ruled unconstitutional by the Colorado Supreme Court last year. Would you like me to cite the case law?" The next 30 minutes were tense. Karen made several phone calls, presumably to the Homeowners Association's lawyer. Meanwhile, I had to call my work and explain why I'd be late. Thankfully, my boss was understanding and actually encouraged me to nail them to the wall. Just before Sarah's deadline expired, 2 maintenance workers arrived and removed the barriers, but this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Sarah helped me file a formal complaint with the state's Housing Commission and a lawsuit against the Homeowners Association board members personally, not the Homeowners Association itself. This was crucial for what came next. We included all my documentation, photos, videos, email correspondence, and the police report. The real breakthrough came when Tom and 3 other neighbors came forward with similar stories. They'd all been targeted with bogus fines when Karen wanted their properties for various reasons. One elderly resident had actually sold their home at a loss just to escape the harassment. During discovery, we uncovered something shocking. Karen and 2 other board members had been running a scheme. They would target specific homeowners, harass them with fines until they sold, then arrange for friends or family to buy the properties at below market rates. They'd done this 6 times in the past 3 years. But the most damning evidence came from the Homeowners Association's own financial records. Karen had been using Homeowners Association funds to pay for personal expenses. Everything from her daughter's college tuition to family vacations disguised as administrative costs and property maintenance. In total, she'd embezzled over $187,000 over 5 years. The case never made it to trial. Once their lawyer saw our evidence, she immediately pushed for settlement negotiations. But I wasn't interested in just money. I wanted systemic change. Our settlement terms were comprehensive. All current board members had to resign immediately. Karen, the treasurer, and the secretary had to repay all embezzled funds. All bogus fines against current residents were nullified. The Homeowners Association bylaws would be completely rewritten with homeowner input. Future board elections would be monitored by an independent third party. Security cameras would be installed around the community, paid for by the former board members. My legal fees would be covered in full. Karen tried to argue, but her own lawyer shut her down. "Take the deal," I overheard him say, "or face criminal charges for embezzlement." They signed the agreement in September 2023. The look on Karen's face as she handed over her resignation letter was priceless. She sold her house the following week and moved out of state. The aftermath brought some surprising changes. Our new Homeowners Association board, elected in October, included Tom and 2 other neighbors who'd helped expose the corruption. They immediately implemented transparent financial practices and created an appeals process for violations. But the best part? The State Attorney General's office opened an investigation into Homeowners Association fraud based on our case. They found similar schemes in other communities and are now pushing for stricter oversight of Homeowners Association boards statewide. As for Karen's daughter who supposedly wanted my house, turns out that was just another lie. She'd already bought a fully accessible condo in another city months before I even moved in. The whole story was just a cover for their property flipping scheme. The final numbers were satisfying. Karen and her co-conspirators had to repay $187,000 in embezzled funds. They paid $95,000 in legal fees. Each victim of their harassment received $25,000 in compensation. The Homeowners Association insurance company paid an additional $150,000 to settle claims. Our monthly homeowners association fees actually decreased to $125 due to better financial management. Tom became the new homeowners association president, and his first official act was to install a plaque in the community center. Good neighbors make good neighborhoods. It's cheesy, but it reminds everyone what an homeowners association should actually be about. Community, not control. Update, December 2023. The aftermath of our homeowners association battle had some unexpected ripple effects I thought you'd all like to hear about. First, the state attorney general's investigation expanded significantly. They discovered our case wasn't isolated. There was a network of corrupt homeowners association board members across 3 counties who shared strategies for forcing out homeowners. Karen was apparently a regular at their secret meetings. In November, the AG's office announced criminal charges against 14 former homeowners association board members, including Karen and her accomplices. They're facing multiple felony counts of fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy. Karen tried to flee to Florida when she heard the indictments were coming, but she was arrested at Denver International Airport. The local news coverage was spectacular. Someone even caught her dramatic airport arrest on video, which went viral on social media. The investigation revealed something even more sinister. Karen's group had been working with certain real estate agents to flip the properties they forced people to sell. They'd made millions over the years targeting elderly residents and single homeowners they thought wouldn't fight back. My refusal to cave apparently threw a wrench in their whole operation. As for our community, the changes have been amazing. Under Tom's leadership, the Homeowners Association has become what it should have been all along. A group that actually helps maintain and improve the neighborhood. We've started community events like monthly cookouts and a community garden. Property values have actually increased because people now want to live here. The new bylaws we implemented have become a model for other homeowners associations in the state. The Colorado legislature is even considering a bill, partly inspired by our case, that would require all homeowners associations to have independent financial audits annually, record all board meetings, and make them accessible to homeowners. Provide documented evidence for all violations. Allow homeowners to appeal any fine to an independent arbitrator. Carry fraud insurance. Have term limits for board members. I've been asked to testify in support of the bill next month. My lawyer, Sarah, is helping me prepare my statement, and several of our neighbors are coming to show support. One particularly satisfying development, we discovered that Karen had installed cameras around the neighborhood years ago without approval to spy on residents. We reprogrammed them to be part of our new security system, and last week they caught someone trying to steal packages from porches. The irony of Karen's surveillance equipment being used to actually protect the community wasn't lost on anyone. The elderly resident who had sold their home at a loss was able to buy back their house using the settlement money, plus additional compensation from the criminal case. They moved back in last week and we threw them a welcome home party. I still get occasional messages from people in other homeowners associations asking for advice on handling similar situations. My standard response is simple. Document everything, know your rights, and never be afraid to stand up to bullies, especially ones who hide behind official-looking letterhead. The final criminal trial is scheduled for March 2024. Sarah thinks Karen and her co-conspirators will likely take a plea deal to avoid maximum sentences, but either way, they'll never be allowed to serve on any homeowners association board again. The state is creating a registry of banned homeowners association officers to prevent this from happening elsewhere. Sometimes I look back at those construction barriers in my driveway and can't believe how that one morning of standing up for myself led to exposing a multi-million-dollar criminal enterprise. Tom likes to joke that we should thank Karen. She united the neighborhood in a way that would have never happened otherwise. But I prefer to think we just proved that when good people work together, justice usually prevails. The new plaque in our community center says it best. Good neighbors make good neighborhoods. And now finally, we actually mean it. The next one is a malicious compliances story. This is a few years back, but working this holiday season, I retold the story to coworkers and felt this was a good place to post. Also, it's a bit of a long one. TLDR, Karen wants to order her chicken breast, has to wait like the rest of the customers. To preface, I am a career butcher, and at the time was working for the food hole. If anyone isn't familiar, the meat department becomes crazy around November and doesn't abate until after Christmas. We took holiday orders in person then, now mostly all online unless they're odd. As you might imagine, the orders are usually for standing rib roasts, tenderloins, hams, turkeys, and ducks and geese. They really add up, and for my boss, sorting all the paper orders is a nightmare. Enter Karen. I would like to place a holiday order. Me. Gets relevant info. Cool. What would you like on the 24th? K. 1 pound of boneless chicken breast. Me. Oh, No problem. You actually don't need to order that. We'll have plenty of regular chicken, steaks, and burger. You only need to place an order for roasts, etc. K. I had to wait forever last year. This year, I don't want to wait, so I'll order it. Me. We'll have 2 lines, so if you're just coming to get regular items, you won't need to wait in the order line. K. But I want to make sure. At this point, I was already way done, so I decided I would comply, maliciously. I took her order, then proceeded to inform every single person in my department of the situation and the plan. The day of, she came up, told the guy at the counter she wanted chicken breast. Having been warned by me, he asked, "Did you pre-order it?" K. Yes. Coworker. Okay, let me go search through the sheet to find your order. K. You can just grab it from the case. C. No, we already have yours put away, I'll find it. I wouldn't want it to get lost in the cooler and go bad over Christmas. K. Frustrated. Okay, coworker goes to our order book, searches through, and finds her name and says, "Okay, I found you on the list, now I just have to find your order." Coworker enters cooler, and as trying to find a pack of chicken breast in a cooler full of roasts is like trying to find a needle in a haystack, it took him about 15 minutes. At multiple points through the ordeal, other employees greeted her. She tried to get them to get her chicken breast, and they all told her, because I had warned them, that she had to wait for the one specifically put aside for her. I estimate that she waited almost 30 minutes, including line time, to get to our counter. The next one is an entitled People's Story. I was asked to post more of my interactions with Karens and Kevins. This happened a few years ago at the airport. I was on my way back from seeing my daughter, son-in-law, and meeting my granddaughter for the first time where they live in the sticker patch in the western U.S. Mind you, I was on crutches as I had fractured my ankle in an accident the 2 days before I left home, styling and profiling in a purple cast which was a little hard to miss, or so I thought. I was in an airport wheelchair being pushed by one of the staff when we were stopped by a Karen looking for her terminal. Now, we'd been stopped a couple times already and it wasn't a huge deal. He'd give directions and we would get back on our way to the terminal I needed to be at. Karen, however, wanted him to escort her to her destination. He told her he would get me to where I needed to be and would come back to help her then if she was still lost. Karen was having none of this. She looked down at me like I bathed in 100% grade A skunk piss, then told him that she required his help more than I did, and demanded that I get up and walk because she was tired and needed a rest while he took her to her terminal. I am sitting in this wheelchair, my purse looped around my neck, my carry-on between my feet, and trying desperately not to trip anyone with my crutches, wearing a vivid purple cast on my ankle. The attendant is trying to be polite. Then she proceeded to grab my arm and try to pull me out of the seat. I'm the type that doesn't like being touched by strangers. Ever. I looked her in the eye and tell her that since my hands are full and my foot is broken, that gives me no choice but to bite her if she doesn't keep her mitts to herself. She jerks her hand back and I honestly thought this walking canker sore was going to swoon. The attendant takes the opportunity to push me through the crowd and towards my destination yet again, giggling as he goes. We get along about another 200 feet, and suddenly this little mini humanoid about 4 years old runs in front of me trying to get in my lap. We stop yet again, and I'm trying to tell this kid that no, he can't ride on me. I'm in a hurry. Oh, Malanta, if I'm lying, I'm dying. He proceeds to throw himself onto the ground in front of us, flailing his arms and legs, throwing a tantrum. The attendant and I look at each other thinking WTF when I guess his dad Kevin comes up and starts yelling at me for not giving his darling little crotch mongrel a ride on my lap. Said crotch mongrel jumps up and runs back to me trying to climb up again, stepping on my cast to get to my lap. I give out a very loud resounding no and he backs up off me. By now my mood has soured completely and I'm not in the slightest mind to humor anyone, let alone some duck nugget trying to jump down my throat because his kid doesn't get told no enough. I lean back and ask the attendant to start pushing before I clean Kevin's clock with my crutch and require bail money. Finally, we reach my terminal. I'm pushed up by the door so they can load me in the first throng of people, and I thank the attendant for his assistance. I have my carry-on the floor in front of the wheelchair and my cast-covered ankle elevated up on it, trying to ease the throbbing, and another Karen approaches the podium. You can tell she's a Karen right away because she's throwing a spastic fit that those in a wheelchair are to be loaded first. She paid good money to be loaded in the first group, and she insisted that she wants a front window seat. The door attendant tells her that is protocol and that she will be in the first group, that ambulatory, after the disabled people are in their seats. This very well-dressed, perfect makeup-ass maggot starts screeching that no, she will board first, and she will pick her seat, and that don't you know who her daddy is? Without batting an eyelash, the door attendant says no, but he's surprised her mom didn't tell her what her dad's name was. That little response boosted my mood incredibly, along with the fact that she looks like a gasping goldfish. We proceed to start getting loaded onto the plane. The lady who was sitting next to me in another wheelchair leans over and whispers that she didn't care where they seated her, but now she really wants to sit in a front row window seat. I whispered back that I'm glad there's two because I want the other one. Other than her stomping her foot like an overgrown 8-year-old when she realized both of her seats were taken, there was no other problems. It did help that our flight attendant was the one that went viral a few years ago who wanted everyone to pretend they were paying attention. I did get a selfie with her. The next one is an entitled parent story. For context, I'm 22M, the oldest son of our mother, with two brothers, 18, 13. We each have different fathers, and though I mostly lived with my paternal grandparents growing up, my brothers both lived with her. The story I'm going to tell will be about the 18-year-old, who I'll call Jay for simplicity. Now our relationship with our mother has been strenuous at times, and it's become ever increasingly clear she's far from a saint. When she was with Jay's father, my aforementioned grandparents took note of the fact that I vehemently refused to go back to her house after visiting them. They told me they had to physically pry me away in order to get me to go, which they had to do legally. I lived with her then. One day I went to visit them and they noticed I had suspicious bruises on my body. Both my mother and Jay's father claimed it was from me playing rough with a dog. When they took me to a doctor to check it out, the doctor told them they could have only been caused by physical abuse, which is what led me to living with my grandparents. I didn't remember any of this, but had it explained to me much later when I was in high school, and made a lot of sense since when I was younger, I would frequently flinch whenever people such as my father raised their hands for any reason. Now, it had been years since that happened, so I didn't hold any ill will towards her for it, figuring she was just as much a victim of it. Until one day she brought it up and revealed she still truly believed it was the dog. There was also her battle with alcoholism. I don't want to get too into it, given it's something she's gotten fixed, and I think it would be untactful to make fun of what was clearly a low point in her life. That said, I think it's important to note because it caused her to get into a lot of fights with our stepdad at the time, the father of the 13-year-old. Because I didn't live there, I only saw bits and pieces, but as you can imagine, my brothers had to live with it. With all of that said, the story this post is supposed to be about happened April, the week of the eclipse. I was visiting for the week, and my mother had Jay take her car to come pick me up. Things were going fine for the first day or so, then it happened. Jay and his girlfriend were both at work while our mom was asleep. She worked the night shift, so I was in the living room watching YouTube or something. She came out of her room where she told me she was mad at Jay before she went back to sleep. Apparently, he was supposed to refill the gas after he picked me up, and he forgot to. I didn't think much of it at the time. He made a mistake. She'd probably call him out on it. And that would be that. Later, when Jay got back home, we went out to his girlfriend's place to watch the eclipse. Then suddenly, I got a call from my mother asking to talk to Jay. I handed the phone over. I could hear my mother screaming from across the driveway, while Jay, with the patience of a saint, tried to explain that he had made a mistake and apologized. And as if flying off the handle at him wasn't bad enough, she told him she was going to take his car away, which, he needed to get to work. Mind you, she had given him the car not long before, but even so, that's still a majorly dick move, and illegal, I'm certain. And also, she was mad because she had to visit the gas station before work, but as far as I know, she wasn't even late to work, she was just in a rush. She made it on time, and yet she was insistent that he had somehow ducked him over. Jay, in a voice that made it clear this was far from the first time something like this had happened, told her in no uncertain terms that he was done dealing with her and was leaving. And indeed, when we got back, he immediately started packing up his things to go and live with his girlfriend, where he still lives today. While that was happening, she said that she wanted to go talk to Jay in private. I was, foolishly, hoping this would be her admitting to going too far and apologizing, and though I wasn't privy to the conversation, she at least had the tact to not start yelling at him again. I feel confident that that wasn't the case. Once all was said and done and Jay was out of the house, she walked into the living room on the phone with Jay's girlfriend, evidently trying to get her to let her talk to him. But she wasn't letting her, at which point she started hurling insults at the poor girl, calling her a whore who was stealing him away from her. This grown-ass, 40-year-old woman was yelling at a girl half her age because she wouldn't let her boyfriend's abusive mom speak to him. So, fast forward to today. From how I understand, Jay still refuses to speak to her, and good for him because he's braver than me. Unfortunately, I'm too afraid of conflict to be able to take a firm stance against her. I even went with her to Thanksgiving the other week just for the sake of not rocking the boat. That said, I have distanced her otherwise. I haven't visited her other than for Thanksgiving, and I've made it a point to not speak to her unless she contacts me first. Still, I know that I'm being too easy on her for what she did. I'm hoping the next time something like this happens, because I just know it will, I'll have the balls to cut her off properly. But yeah, that's all I have to say. Thank you for watching. I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. We'll see you again tomorrow.